You can't do that in a garage. There's just a few places in the world with the right equipment and only a few people in the world with the right training to be able to do that.
59. Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport were left in the world. One was a carcass in Miami, a carbon fiber corpse the factory essentially erased from existence by locking its VIN. Then Mat Armstrong showed up with a toolbox and a refusal to take no for an answer. What followed wasn't just a rebuild, it was a high-stakes power play with Bugatti's CEO, Mat Rimac, that ended in the unthinkable. It's a story of grease, grit, and a $4 million middle finger, the blacklist, and the $1.7 million threat. The problem with a crashed Bugatti isn't just the physics, it's the philosophy. When a normal car gets into a fender bender, you call the insurance company, get a check, and head to a body shop. When a Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport, a car so rare it makes a regular Chiron look like a Honda Civic, hits a $4,000 Japanese delivery truck in Miami, the rules of reality simply dissolve. This specific car, once the crown jewel of influencer Alex G's collection, didn't just sustain damage, it sustained a corporate execution. Bugatti doesn't do salvage. In the eyes of the Molsheim elite, a compromised Bugatti is no longer a Bugatti. It is a liability. After a factory technician flew in from France to inspect the wreckage, the verdict was swift and brutal. Total loss. But the brand went a step further, implementing what the community calls the blacklist. They locked the car's VIN in their global system. This meant that no authorized dealer from Dubai to London was permitted to sell so much as a plastic clip for this chassis. The car was effectively a ghost, a $4 million heap of carbon fiber and leather that was legally and mechanically forbidden from ever being whole again. Then there was the bill. If the owner wanted the car resurrected, Bugatti wasn't going to let a local mechanic turn a wrench. They demanded the car be shipped back to France for a factory restoration. The initial estimate for parts alone? A soul-crushing $1.7 million. To put that in perspective, a pair of headlights, the eyes of the beast, were quoted at $174,000. Each front fender was another $200,000. The horseshoe grille, that iconic symbol of automotive royalty, sat at a cool $93,000. You could buy a fleet of brand-new Porsches for the price of the Bugatti's front bumper. It was an extortionate gatekeeping tactic designed to ensure that if you can't afford to fix it their way, the car stays dead. Enter Mat Armstrong. Most people see a $1.7 million repair bill and see a wall. Mat saw a challenge. He didn't just want to fix the car. He wanted to expose the hypercar tax for what it really was. When he arrived in Miami to survey the damage, he found a car that was certainly battered, but not broken beyond the reach of human ingenuity. The carbon fiber tub had minor cracks, and the engine mounts were fractured, but the legendary W16 heart was still beating. Mat realized that the unrepairable label wasn't a technical fact. It was a business decision. The tension reached a boiling point when the car's owner issued a public ultimatum on Instagram. Bugatti, you have 24 hours to unblacklist this car, or we will 3D print all the parts. It was the ultimate digital middle finger. It was a threat to the very essence of Bugatti's business model exclusivity. If a guy in a shed in England could 3D print a fender that looked and functioned like the real thing, the $200,000 price tag on the factory part would be revealed as a hollow fiction. This wasn't just about a car anymore. It was about the right to repair reaching the absolute peak of the automotive food chain. The internet held its breath. Usually, when you threaten a multi-billion-dollar brand under the Volkswagen Group umbrella, you receive a cease and desist letter faster than the car goes from 0 to 60. You get lawyers. You get silence. You get crushed by the weight of corporate machinery. But this time, the world was watching Mat's channel. Millions of people were seeing the internal guts of a Chiron for the first time, realizing that underneath the prestige, it was still just bolts, wires, and fluid. The curtain had been pulled back, and the wizard was sweating. Mat's father, a veteran mechanic with a lifetime of making it work, became the secret weapon. Together, they represented the antithesis of the sterile, white-glove Molsheim environment. They were the grease monkeys in the ivory tower. The proof wasn't just that the car could be fixed. It was that the aura of the unfixable hypercar was a myth created to protect profit margins and brand prestige. The 1.7 million threat was intended to be a deterrent, a keep-out sign posted on the lawn of the elite. Instead, it acted as a dinner bell for a new generation of enthusiasts who value grit over pedigree. As Matt began the process of sourcing alternative parts and investigating the shared DNA between Bugatti and the rest of the VW bin, finding Audi part numbers on components that Bugatti claimed were bespoke, the pressure on Molsheim became unbearable. They couldn't just ignore it. If the build succeeded without them, they lost control of the narrative. If they sued, they looked like the villains of the automotive world. They were backed into a corner by a guy with a YouTube channel and a dream. But Matt wasn't just fighting the factory, he was about to prove their physics wrong with a trash can. The trash can and modular magic. The aura of a Bugatti is built on the idea that it isn't a car, but a celestial object. The factory in Molsheim, a workshop so clean you could perform heart surgery on the floor, maintains a strict narrative. These cars are too complex for mortal hands. When Mat Armstrong announced he was going to split the Chiron Pur Sport in half to assess the drivetrain, the official word from Bugatti was clear. They claimed there were only 2 facilities on the entire planet, equipped with the specialized proprietary jigs and laser-guided cradles necessary to separate the front monocoque from the rear subframe. To do it in a garage in the English Midlands was, according to the manual, a physical impossibility that would likely result in a $4 million pile of scrap metal. Matt's response? He went to the corner of his shop, grabbed a plastic workshop trash can, and pulled off the rolling wheelbase. This is where the proof became legendary. To split a Chiron, you have to support the massive W16 engine and the dual-clutch transmission while simultaneously rolling the front carbon fiber tub away. Bugatti uses a multi-million-dollar hydraulic rail system. Matt used a standard 2-post lift, some scrap timber, and that garbage can base. As he and his father unbolted the car, the internet watched with its heart in its throat. If the car tipped, it was game over. If a single line caught, the carbon tub would crack. But as the wheels of the trash can began to roll, the impossible happened. The 4 million hypercar pulled apart with the mechanical grace of a Lego set. This moment stripped away the mystery. By getting the car apart with caveman tools, Matt exposed the secret Bugatti didn't want the world to focus on. The Chiron is surprisingly modular. As they peeled back the skin, they discovered that the entire front and rear sections are held together by just 14 primary titanium bolts. These aren't magic bolts forged in the heart of a star. They are high-grade fasteners that, while expensive, follow the same laws of torque and tension as a Volkswagen Golf. As the 2 halves sat on the shop floor, the true evidence of the damage was revealed. The impact in Miami had been a freak accident of physics. The force hadn't just crunched the bumper. It had sent a shockwave through the car, shoving the entire 8.0-liter engine forward by a fraction of an inch. This movement had crushed a series of vital coolant lines and dented the structural heat shielding. But the smoking gun, the reason Bugatti wanted the car dead, was the cast aluminum engine mount support. It was fractured. To Bugatti, a crack in a structural cast component is a death sentence. Their official protocol is replace, don't repair. Because they refused to sell that specific bracket individually, their solution was to sell a completely new engine and gearbox housing. Hence, the 1.7 million quote. It was a classic case of corporate gatekeeping. They weren't saying it couldn't be fixed. They were saying they wouldn't allow it to be fixed for anything less than the price of a private island. Matt's investigation started to uncover more sins of the hypercar world. As he pulled part numbers, he found the fingerprints of the Volkswagen Group everywhere. He found sensors, clips, and small mechanical components that shared DNA with high-end Audis and Bentleys. While Bugatti owners pay a 1,000% markup for the EB logo on the box, the reality of the engineering is a masterclass in high-end parts bin sharing. Mat wasn't just fixing a car, he was performing an autopsy on the hypercar industry's most profitable myths. The most riveting part of this section of the build wasn't the discovery of the damage, but the realization of the solution. Mat didn't go crying back to France. Instead, he consulted with aerospace engineers and specialist welders. He looked into 3D scanning the fractured mount to CNC machine a billet aluminum replacement that would actually be stronger than the original cast piece. This was the ultimate proof. It proved that modern technology, specifically 3D and CNC machining, has leveled the playing field. A dedicated individual with a high-end workshop can now replicate or improve upon factory components that were once considered bespoke. This thing sent shockwaves through the Bugatti community. For the first time, owners saw the car without its clothes on. They saw that the magic was actually just very clever, very expensive modular engineering. The myth of the two facilities in the world was dead, killed by a guy who used a garbage can to hold up a W16 engine. It shifted the power dynamic from the manufacturer to the enthusiast. It showed that if you have the courage to turn the first bolt, the unthinkable is actually quite manageable. The build was no longer just a YouTube series, it was a manifesto for the right to repair at the highest level of society. Every time Mat successfully bypassed a proprietary hurdle, the $1.7 million factory quote looked less like a repair bill and more like a ransom note. And as the footage of the split chassis racked up millions of views, it became clear that Bugatti had a choice. They could keep pretending the car was an alien relic, or they could acknowledge the man who had just dismantled their greatest marketing lie with a plastic bin. While the world cheered for the underdog, the big boss in Croatia was quietly watching the footage. Mate Rimac's unexpected response. The internet is used to corporate giants responding to criticism with a wall of lawyers and a no comment. But Mate Rimac is not your average suit-and-tie executive. He is a man who built a world-conquering EV empire, starting with an old BMW in his garage. He understands the garage kid mentality because, at his core, he still is one. While Bugatti's legal department likely had their fingers hovering over the send button for a cease and desist, Rimac chose to do something entirely different. He picked up his phone, logged into Instagram, and engaged. The interaction started when the car's owner, Alex Gonzalez, issued his 24-hour ultimatum to 3D print the parts. Most CEOs would have laughed or ignored it. Instead, Rimac slid into the DMs with a message that shifted the entire tone of the conflict. "Hey man, Bugatti CEO here." In that moment, the wall between the billion-dollar manufacturer and the individual owner crumbled. Rimac didn't lead with threats. He led with engineering. He explained, person to person, why 3D printing a structural component for a 1,500 horsepower car wasn't just a matter of sticking it to the man, it was a matter of life and death. He pointed out that the gearbox housing and the carbon monocoque are subjected to stresses that home-grade filaments simply cannot handle. But then came the pivot that shocked the industry. Rimac admitted that the $1.7 million quote being tossed around was based on worst-case scenario insurance estimates and that Bugatti wanted to help. Then, the unthinkable happened. Bugatti officially unblacklisted the car. This was a total reversal of decades of automotive policy. By lifting the ban, Rimac wasn't just letting one car back into the fold, he was acknowledging that the total loss label shouldn't be a permanent death sentence if there is a viable path to a safe repair. This wasn't just a private conversation either. Rimac took to social media to post a video directly addressing the Mat Armstrong build. He was polite, articulate, and most surprisingly, he admitted to being a fan of Mat's content. This created a fascinating meta moment in automotive history. You had the CEO of the world's most prestigious car brand watching a YouTuber use a trash can to split his flagship product. Rimac didn't mock the trash can method, he used it as an opportunity to explain the sheer complexity of the car. He debunked the viral $174,000 headlight rumors, stating the actual cost was closer to $58,000. Still astronomical. but a far cry from the urban legend numbers that had been fueling the internet's rage. The response was a masterclass in modern PR. By inviting Mat and the owner to discuss a cost-efficient path forward, Rimac turned an adversary into a collaborator. He offered a fair price for a factory-supported rebuild, rumored to be a massive drop from the original seven-figure estimate. This put the ball back in the YouTuber's court. If Mat and Alex refused a reasonable offer to have the car fixed the right way, they would look like they were chasing clicks over quality. If they accepted, Bugatti got to keep a close eye on the most famous salvage car in the world and ensure it didn't become a 261 miles per hour safety hazard. However, the proof Mat had already provided that the car was modular and that many parts were accessible had already changed the leverage. Rimac's engagement was an admission that the old way of dictating to owners was dead. In the age of social media, transparency is the only currency that matters. Rimac realized that if he kept fighting Mat, he would be the villain, stopping a masterpiece from returning to the road. By supporting him, he became the cool CEO who respects the hustle. This shift has massive implications for the future of Bugatti. It shows a move toward a more human brand. Rimac even started teasing the new V16 Tourbillon by focusing on its mechanical watch-like qualities, almost echoing the very things Mat was praising as he took the Chiron apart. The move wasn't just the unblacklisting, it was the realization that the CEO of Bugatti and a YouTuber from the UK were actually excited about the same thing: the beautiful, complex, and occasionally frustrating reality of high-end engineering. There is a lesson here for every legacy brand. The unthinkable isn't a loss of control, it's an evolution. By meeting Mat Armstrong halfway, Mat Rimac ensured that the Chiron Pur Sport stayed a Bugatti, rather than becoming a Frankenstein project that would forever haunt the brand's reputation. He chose conversation over litigation, and in doing so, he saved more than just a car. He saved the brand's relevance with a younger, tech-savvy generation that values authenticity over a polished brochure. The saga proved that even at the very top of the food chain, there is room for a little grease under the fingernails. Rimac's response validated the DIY movement while simultaneously reinforcing why the factory exists. It was a delicate balancing act that only a garage kid turned CEO could have pulled off. As the talks continued and the parts began to ship, the message was clear. The gatekeepers are still there, but for the first time, they're willing to hold the door open if you show you've got the skills to enter. This wasn't just a PR win, it was a total rewrite of the hypercar handbook. The ripple effect, the fallout of the Mat Armstrong saga didn't stay contained within the walls of a workshop in the Midlands. It spilled over into the entire automotive industry, acting as a high-speed collision between the right-to-repair movement and the ultimate gatekeepers of luxury. For decades, the hypercar world has operated on a foundation of total control. When you buy a car at this level, there is an unwritten and often written contract. You are merely a custodian of the brand's image. If you crash it, you pay the factory to fix it. If they say it's dead, it stays dead. Mat Armstrong didn't just break a car, he broke that contract. The ripple effect started with the realization that software and VIN locking are the new front lines of automotive ownership. When Bugatti blacklisted the Chiron, they weren't just protecting their engineering, they were exercising a form of digital DRM, digital rights management, on a physical object. If a manufacturer can remotely kill a car by refusing to sell parts or authorize software handshakes, do you truly own the car? Or are you just leasing the right to drive it until the factory decides otherwise? Mat's struggle to source components highlighted the terrifying reality that even if you have the mechanical skill to fix a 1,500 horsepower machine, a line of code in France can keep it off the road forever. This sparked a massive debate across the supercar community. We saw owners of Ferraris, McLarens, and Paganis watching the trash can proof with a mix of horror and hope. If a Bugatti, the peak of complexity, could be dismantled and diagnosed by a father-son duo in a shed, the myth of factory-only competence was exposed as a lucrative marketing shell game. The industry was forced to face a hard truth. The 3D printing threat wasn't just bluster. While Mat Rimac was right to warn that home-printed structural components are a death trap at 200 miles per hour, the fact that an owner could scan and replicate a $93,000 grille or a $200,000 fender sends a chill down the spine of every luxury CFO. It means the parts bin markup is finally meeting its match in modern technology. Furthermore, the saga highlighted the secondary market problem that plagues the ultra-wealthy. When a car is blacklisted, its value doesn't just drop, it vanishes. By taking a stand, Mat was fighting for the salvage tier of the market, the enthusiasts who dream of owning a hypercar but can only afford one if it comes in pieces. This democratization of hypercar repair is a nightmare for brands that rely on artificial scarcity and pristine resale records to maintain their prestige. If wrecked Bugattis start appearing on the road, repaired by third parties, the brand's aura of untouchable perfection begins to bleed. However, the ripple effect also moved in a more positive, collaborative direction. Mat-Rimac's willingness to engage showed other manufacturers a better way to handle the YouTube generation. Instead of sending a battalion of lawyers to sue a creator into oblivion, the traditional Ferrari play, Rimac used the situation to educate. He turned a PR disaster into an engineering documentary. He explained the why behind the high costs, the R&D, the homologation, the safety testing, rather than just the what. This transparency actually did more to justify Bugatti's high prices than any glossy brochure ever could. By showing the complexity of the airbag covers or the structural integrity of the gearbox, Rimac proved that while Mat could fix it, the factory should fix it for the sake of the car's legacy. The impact also reached the legal sphere. Advocacy groups for the right to repair began using the Mat Armstrong case as a radical example. If the most complex car on Earth can be worked on by an independent mechanic, then there is no excuse for tractor companies or smartphone manufacturers to lock out their customers. The Chiron became a 261 miles per hour symbol of mechanical freedom. It proved that proprietary tools are often just a lack of imagination, and that unrepairable is often just a synonym for unprofitable for the manufacturer. Even the parts-sharing discovery had a massive impact. When Mat started finding Audi and VW stamps on components hidden deep within the Chiron's guts, it pulled back the veil on the bespoke myth. While the engine and chassis are undoubtedly unique, the support systems are built on the back of the world's largest automotive parts bin. This discovery empowers independent shops to service these cars without the Bugatti tax, potentially saving owners tens of thousands on routine maintenance. It signals the beginning of an era where owners are less afraid of their cars and more willing to treat them as machines rather than museum pieces. The one provided by Mat Armstrong and the response from Mat-Rimac have created a new middle ground. It's a space where a manufacturer respects the owner's right to tinker, and the owner respects the manufacturer's engineering standards. The Hypercar Handbook hasn't just been rewritten, it's been open-sourced. The world now knows that under the carbon fiber and the prestige, even a Bugatti is just nuts and bolts, and there isn't a bolt in the world that can't be turned by someone with enough grit. Let's look at the mechanical chaos being born next door. The future. 516. Chaos and the new era. The timing of the Mat Armstrong saga couldn't be more poetic. As Mat was literally splitting the past in half in his garage, Mat-Rimac was unveiling the future next door. The Bugatti Tourbillon. This isn't just a new model. It's a philosophical pivot that seems almost shaped by the very grit Mat brought to the table. For the first time, Bugatti is moving away from the black box engineering of the Chiron and toward a celebration of mechanical transparency. The Tourbillon, with its 8.3-liter naturally aspirated V16, is a love letter to the era of visible, understandable engineering. The kind of engineering you can actually see, touch, and, if you're brave enough, fix. Mat-Rimac's obsession with the mechanical feel of the new car is no accident. He has frequently described the Tourbillon as a Swiss watch on wheels. By choosing a naturally aspirated engine over a turbocharged one, he has eliminated the complexity of 4 turbos and replaced it with a raw, visceral connection to the road. This shift aligns perfectly with the Armstrong effect. Mat's videos proved that people are tired of cars being treated like disposable iPhones that can only be serviced by geniuses in lab coats. They want to see the gears. They want to know how the modular magic works. Rimac has leaned into this, designing the tourbillon's interior with analog gauges crafted by actual watchmakers, a defiant stand against the digital screenfest that defines modern luxury. This new era of Bugatti is marked by a strange symbiotic relationship between the factory and the hackers. While Rimac still maintains that a 276 miles per hour hypercar needs factory-grade oversight for safety, his engagement with Mat has softened the brand's image. Bugatti is no longer the unreachable monolith that sends lawyers to your door for changing your own oil. It is becoming a brand that values the engineering soul. The tourbillon is the physical manifestation of this. It's a car designed to last 100 years, not just a lease cycle. By making the car more analog and mechanical, Rimac is effectively making it more permanent. He is acknowledging that the future of the brand isn't just in the first sale, but in the legacy of every chassis that stays on the road. The mechanical chaos being born in the tourbillon actually shares a lot of DNA with the chaos Mat found in the Chiron. As the factory explores 3D-printed titanium suspension components and AI-optimized structural brackets, they are essentially doing the high-end version of what Mat threatened to do in his workshop. The technology that allows Mat to 3D scan and CNC machine a custom engine mount is the same technology Bugatti is using to shave grams off the tourbillon's wishbones. The gap between the factory and the garage is closing, and instead of fighting it, Rimac is incorporating that spirit into the design of the next generation. There is also the matter of the V16 itself. In a world obsessed with quiet, clinical ease, the decision to build a screaming 9,000 revolutions per minute V16 is a massive risk. It's a hustle move. It's the kind of decision a garage builder makes because it's cool, not because it's efficient. This is where the brand's heritage meets Mat Armstrong's hustle. Mat proved there is a massive audience, tens of millions of people, who find the guts of a car more interesting than its top speed. Rimac has realized that the story of how the car is made and maintained is just as valuable as the car itself. The tourbillon isn't just a product, it's a narrative about refusing to let the combustion engine die. As the Armstrong Chiron build nears completion, the unthinkable has become the new normal. The car will likely never be official in the eyes of a Concord judge, but it has become the most famous Bugatti on the planet. It represents a bridge between the old guard of Molsheim and the new world of decentralized engineering. When the V16 tourbillon finally hits the streets in 2026, it will carry with it a brand image that is significantly more authentic than it was 2 years ago. Bugatti has successfully transitioned from being a status symbol for the silent to a masterpiece for the mechanical. Mat Armstrong has effectively become the best marketing Bugatti never paid for. By challenging the brand, he forced them to prove their worth. By refusing to stay dead, the Miami Chiron forced Bugatti to become more human. The future of the company now looks less like a corporate boardroom and more like a high-tech workshop. The proof is in the pudding. You can't kill a good machine, and you can't ignore a good engineer, whether he's wearing a tailored suit in Croatia or a grease-stained hoodie in England. One man has a factory, the other has a shed, and for the first time, they're speaking the same language. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for supporting our channel.